which was done. There were challenges. Yes, there were challenges from people who were managing the system. They said that it is going to give them a kind of a transparent picture to the management what is happening within the premises. More so with the like inventory management of the medicine, and they feared that it will go to the inventory management of the medicine. And there were so many challenges, but this solution was implemented and hospital was happy with the kind of a solution which we provided them. This is the overall picture which we did with the hospital. Now, any elaborations, any questions on this? I can elaborate.
So this was rolled out to all the hospitals of the group or only one hospital, Rami?
See, it was done in Mumbai. Then I left Samsung. I don't have any idea on exactly. It was to be replicated in Hyderabad as well. They had a hospital in Hyderabad. They wanted to do it in Hyderabad, but I'm not sure it has been done or not. I'm not sure of. Thereafter, we got an inquiry from Continental Hospital in Hyderabad. Thereafter, we got a query from JP. In JP, we implemented in Delhi, Noida, partially to some extent.
So what kind of feedback did you get to hear from the users, right?
The users were very happy. Calling a nurse, they had an issue. Nurse nahi aa rahi hai, like a conventional system. They used to tell nurse does not respond. At least it was recorded. The moment it was initiated, it was recorded how much time nurse did take to reach the patient. And there were other features, code blue and code red, which were implemented in the solution. It was a customized solution, and it could be enhanced as per the customer requirement. It had capability of, because it was a modular solution. And thereafter, I have come to know the other companies which have locally started doing these kind of solutions with small time hospitals as well in modular form. This is what the whole story is. And JP did with JP Noida did the same kind of a solution implementation. This is what it is all about.
What was the time you took to implement this?
Ma'am, it was a trial basis system. It took us a year to completely ensure that the solution is done, because there were some compliance issues, HIPAA issues. There was a storage issue, how it is going to be stored. The data was to be stored within the premises. We couldn't do it on a cloud because of certain regulatory frameworks and all that. There were issues. Yes, we faced challenges. We did it. There were interoperability issues within the different devices which were within the premises. And yes, they had an apprehension that some people may misuse this data at a later stage. There was a probability of having a data breach. That is the reason they wanted the server, everything data within the hospital premises. And it took us a year, yes, completely run the solution, because there was 3 to 4 months of a pilot which was done for a specific floor within the hospital. Thereafter, they got convinced that this solution can be replicated to other critical areas, and it was gradually enhanced, and it took us a year to complete the solution. And with JP, they did it in a modular form, and they did the model of a nurse management only. And because it was a tried and tested solution, it took us 2 months to implement the solution. This is how it all about this. Now we can start addressing the question.
Maybe taking a cue from there, I think, Satya, is it really possible to monitor the patient's vital with some kind of IoT solution, right? Is it something possible?
Yes. So if you are able to hear me, let me connect from Rami's payer provider side of things to actual clinical devices. So what happens is, with HCL, while working with them, we work with a equipment manufacturing company, medical devices, who were specializing in CRM, cardiac rhythm management, and heart failure. Now they had 2 sets of devices. Cardiac rhythm possibly is the pacemaker which is installed on a patient, from where the data needs to be captured and the rhythm needs to be monitored continuously, both by the clinic, the nurse, as well as the clinician or the doctor. And the second is the heart failure part, which is essentially a small device which is inserted into the artery that pumps out blood in the heart and checks the certain vitals that only that sensor can detect, and pass it to the app and the doctor to monitor if the heart has any symptoms of failure. If it has, then there is immediate intervention by the doctor. So there are 2 sets of devices that we work with this customer. Now, there are some both technical as well as ethical issues, particularly with the cardiac rhythm management. What happens is, when the pacemaker is installed and we constantly get that input of the heart's condition and the rhythm is continuously monitored. So we keep checking through this software solution, which is collecting data from the pacemaker into the edge device, which is sometimes the mobile. And from there, it goes to the cloud. And from cloud, it goes to the app, which is installed in the doctor's phone, who will keep monitoring the patient's parameters, vital parameters. And when patients get old, there would be interventions required in terms of fine-tuning the pacemaker, to ensure that the rhythm is maintained. Now there comes a point or a in life where it is near end of life, but the pacemaker will not let the patient die. It will be literally firing the volts into the heart, and then not let him die. So it literally fries the heart. So that is where the one of the questions that came up during this whole software solution is, when should we let go and who makes that ethical call? So it is still in debate. So that was one part of the experience that we had while defining the software solution. Should we give that plug to the doctor to say, okay, stop the pacemaker? Now that's not easy decision. So we went through that, and then we left it to the FDA to decide what we want to do. And on cardiac rhythm management also similar, this thing that sensor that is inserted into the artery constantly sends out certain critical parameters to the edge device, which is essentially a mobile or a custom-made device, which again pushes regular time series data into the cloud, where the analytics kick in and the dashboards are presented to the doctors and the clinicians to keep checking. And see, the best part about having these data in time and continuously streamed is we could set some sort of analytics there to at least trigger those alerts. If we look at certain parameters which are going up and down, and which is an indication of possible heart failure, it will immediately send an alert to the clinic, to the nearest attendant, to the patient, and also to the doctor. Now, what that will essentially help the doctor to change the medication and ensure that the heart failure doesn't happen. So this was the solution that we were working with one medical devices company. And once we developed the software solution and it was tested, and after that we handed it over for their FDA approval and all that. So that was one part of the experience that we had taking over on the medical side. And from there, if you go back to the aircraft manufacturing company, we were working with Boeing. And in the current day and time, the if you remember the transition from hydraulic and pneumatic driven controls to fly-by-wires, which the Airbus brought in, where most of the controls are driven by the electric impulses. Now, the aircraft has so many sensors on it, and all the data gets into the computers on board. Now, look at the whole thing, that this data comes in from multiple sources at real time, and the anomaly in the processing of the data could happen because of any reason. Now, if you have only one computer sensing it and then giving you the inputs to take action, it could be erroneous. So what they did is they installed more than one computers to cross verify. A classic example, if you remember, there was one particular French Airbus which took off from, I think, Sao Paulo and crashed into the Pacific. And the case study there is what happened in that particular fly-by-wire Airbus aircraft. The tubes that are in the end of the wings, which measure the airspeed, which are called the pitot tubes. So as the aircraft was going in through the clouds, it hit an icicle cloud. And then as the icicles got into the pitot tube, it choked the speed sensors. Now, what that immediately did was it conveyed a message to the aircraft that the aircraft is stalling, because it couldn't suddenly sense the speed. So the computers on board went haywire, and then eventually they stopped the engines and there's something seriously wrong. And that aircraft eventually crashed in Pacific. Now, why am I bringing this up? So as we get data from the various sensors on today, they're there in cars, they're in aircrafts, everywhere. The data needs to come in on time, and it has to be validated and revalidated. You cannot depend on one set of validation. And that is what we built at Boeing, what we call cabin experience network system, where there are various sensors. At the same time, we built a lot of what we call smart cameras in the aircraft, particularly 777, which is not very famous for its software. But this software that we built was basically to manage the data that's coming in from various in-cabin data, whether it is the pressure, temperature, airflow, quality of air, and video analytics. So with all this data, with the data coming from the video streams, we could actually alert the stewards on various events that were happening based on the video streams and the data sensors that we are seeing. If there is some additional vibration on any part of the aircraft, the sensors would pick it up and alert that there is a certain set of vibration, then go check. Or if there is an animal that is loose in the cargo, it will warn the steward and the pilot, then they will possibly take an immediate recourse to get into a nearest airport and land. So So when this data keeps coming in, what we are finding that it is one thing to get data, other thing to get it on time. So in the current platform that we are working with Kripya, what we are looking at is industrial data where the process manufacturing, whether it is manufacturing of parts of a car or an aircraft, various industry flows. When you look at that, we need to ensure the data comes in on time for the right decisions to be made. So for example, for an automotive car, what happens is if there is one platform of a car, let's say Maruti 800, there are multiple variants to it, and you have a single assembly basically manufactures that aircraft, but there are variants to it, right? So either you could be doing an 800 or an Alto or a Alto VXI, LXI, so many models, but you don't have separate assembly lines for all this. So there are plans that we make to collect first your plan, then ensure that the plan is connected to various machines and their operating parameters as to what they can perform. Then balance the entire assembly line based on the model mix that you have planned, and then connect this data to your supply chain, because your supply chain has to be making the data or the parts available at the right station at the right time. Otherwise, you would miss the whole balance. So in this current world of AI, analytics, and data coming in from multiple sources, one thing that we realize is, just getting data is not enough. You have to get it in time. Like at one time, the Japanese brought in just in time. Now I think is a generation where data has to come in time for you to make right decisions. I will just digress from here to another place where the IoT is taking the next level of technology jump is if you take, for example, what we call drone analytics, which we have done with HCL, is if you have these wind farms which are generating electricities all across the world. So now it is impossible for any maintenance guy to first find out where the problem is, then go with the spares and fix that particular wind turbine in some remote hill somewhere in Nilgiris. Now, what we have worked on is what we call drone analytics, where there's a drone with a camera which flies around all these windmills and then checks for specific cracks, failure, or issues. Now, the data comes in from two sources. One is the visual inspection of the site. At the same time, there are sensors. As it flies by, it will pick up a lot of those sensor data. With these two, it will send the data back to the base station, where the analysis will provide us the details of what turbine requires, what fix has to be done, and what spares need to be carried out to that particular location to perform the analytics. Now, if you see this whole thing, you have a visual coming in, or data coming in, and your analysis coming in. So the current industry is moving towards more and more of this smart AI-based solutions, which are driving the growth. And now, since we are targeting MSME segment, the AI and the agentic AI is something that is the big thing that will change the small and medium industry in terms of their planning, in terms of their execution, and in terms of optimizing their efforts for getting maximum bang for the buck. So I will pause here. I shared my various experiences. So any questions?
I have one, Satya.
Yeah.
It's regarding the road accidents that we have. So can we build up something similar kind of solution so that whenever there is an accident, whether it's four-wheeler or two-wheeler, a trigger is sent to the nearest police station. Instead of people calling the police station and help, they automatically get the information and the help is reached on time.
Yes, it is possible. If at least in Chennai, I can tell you there are more cameras than policemen on the streets. So the feed from all this has to go into one place where the video analytics can be done and identifying that accident and the severity of the accident, because every accident need not necessarily require police or medical intervention. So that kind of video analytics can be done because the feed is there. It's for us to see. Now it is for the police and the traffic to invest on those solutions to pick up the data from the streets and then take necessary action. If it is severe, if necessary, helicopter based, nowadays with the traffic, direct ambulance reaching is not possible. Helicopter based ambulance can be reached, nearest police can be intimated, or even social service agents who are nearby, clinics who can be intimated to make the bed ready so that the patient is immediately taken care of. Yes, answer to your question is yes, it is possible, but then it requires that investment by the authority to get it done.
Okay, fine.